The presidential inauguration ceremony in the Fourth Republic is Secretary to the Government of the Federation is also Chairman of the Transition Council, Boss Mustapha. Thank you for joining us on the program. Let's begin with the theme for the 2023 transition, Nigeria Better Together. I know you've talked about how historically significant this inauguration is to the country and the continent. But talk to us about why you have chosen this theme and what it means for Nigeria at this time.
Well, thank you for having me on the program. I believe that the decision of the Presidential Transition Council to adopt the theme that we have adopted for this inauguration is informed by several factors. One, we have come a long way. Having had a continuous processes of democracy for the last 24 years unbroken, the 7th consecutive inauguration, we felt that in spite of whatever issues the 2023 election threw up, we're still better together as a nation and as a people. That's substantially one of the reasons why we adopted the theme.
Absolutely. It's Nigeria's 7th consecutive inauguration ceremony since 1999. And by next year, we will be celebrating 25 years of unbroken democratic rule. Speak to us about just how significant Nigeria's political stability is for the continent, especially with what's happening in countries like Sudan, Mali, and others.
Oh, the Nigerian enterprise is of absolute significance to the African continent. We are the largest economy in terms of population. We are about 220, and it is expected that very soon in the next decade, we will be the 3rd most populated nation in the world. So the world is looking up to Nigeria, one, to continue to deepen its democracy, sustain democratic ethics and tenets, and also provide the effective kind of leadership that is desirous on the African continent. I truly agree with you that there have been disturbing developments, particularly within the West African sub-region of recent. And I believe that one of the reasons why the world is expecting Nigeria to succeed in its democratic enterprise is because our share population alone can be a major challenge if we are conflicted as a nation and there is a lot of upheavals in our country. So I believe that the world is expecting us to succeed and they are looking up to us, and that's why you had the deluge of election observers that came into the country in the 2023 election. As a matter of fact, the 2023 election is one of the most watched elections globally. And for obvious reasons, like I said, our share population can create a very serious challenge to the African continent. And we need to provide the kind of leadership that we have provided so far, so that at least people on the continent of Africa looking up to Nigeria would say for sure, if a country like Nigeria, as diverse as we are, with all sorts of tendencies, are able to make it right, then they have hope in their nations. So I believe this election has created that avenue for the world to appreciate the modest efforts that we have been able to achieve as a country. Like you rightly said, next year we'll be celebrating 25 years of unbroken democracy. It has never happened in this country if you look back at our political evolution and development. So we need to make merry and rejoice, pat ourselves on the back. We're not there yet as a nation, but I believe that this is a step forward.
Unfortunately, SGF, not everyone sees it the way you're looking at it. Just last week you mentioned President Buhari's commitment to a seamless transfer of power, but also we've also, witnessed some agitations in some quarters for an interim government, which has now been highlighted by the DSS, the police, and even the military. Is that something your council is concerned about?
Well, we have averted our minds to that. We've discussed it at different levels And we have come to one logical conclusion, that one, our constitution does not contemplate that happening. Our constitution is sacrosanct. Section 132, 1 and 2 are very explicit. There shall be an election to the office of the president. And Section 2 provides for the timelines. And Section 285 is very explicit, that if anybody disputes the results of the election, he has 21 days within which to file his petition in the election petitions of the different levels. Thereafter, the election petition tribunals have 180 having 180 days within which to determine the election petition. And the same section, subsection, I think 7 of the section 285 of the Constitution, even avails you the opportunity to go on appeal, another 60 days. So our Constitution and our electoral laws have provided sufficiently for disputes to be settled. There shouldn't be any cause for agitations, and the call for interim administration is unknown to our laws unless we decide to amend our Constitution and our electoral processes. That is a far-fetched call. But we appeal to people to litigate it through the processes that have been set up by our Constitution and by our enabling laws like the Electoral Act. And at the end of the day, the truth about it is that this is not the only election that has been litigated. 79, all litigated the election of Shagari. Subsequently, we've had litigation. The only election that has not been litigated in our history, particularly the last 24 years, is only the election of 2015, where Jonathan conceded defeat.
Indeed.
So the truth about it is that we have processes through which we should resolve our disputes, and I think that should not provide any room for any anxiety. I know losing elections is a very painful exercise. As a young man, I ran for the governorship of Adamawa in 1991. I lost that election, but the same news item that carried the victory of my opponent carried my congratulatory message. And I didn't lose anything. It's a contest that you go into. You either win or lose. So I would appeal to those that are litigating this election to continue in the processes, because our Constitution and our electoral laws have laid the framework for that. But they should allow peace to prevail so that we will have a seamless, very seamless, and very, very, very open and historically significant transmission of power to the next president.
Absolutely.
Who is,
well, beyond your appeal, I also know that you have a committee that oversees, the security aspect of the inauguration. What are you doing in that regard, particularly with all of the intelligence we are getting from, military operatives?
Well, we are working towards ensuring that nothing unpleasant happens. We are putting every processes in place. The security apparatus, the armed forces, the lead agency for civil security is the Nigerian police. They are putting everything that ought to be put in place to ensure that we have a seamless transition of power. We are mindful of the fact that agitators will continue to exploit whatever weaknesses there are in the system. But I can tell you that we think we have put a cordon of security around the premises and around all facilities where events would take place for the transition process, and I believe that we are on top of the game. You've had the IGP address the press on that. DSS have raised the red alerts, but that in any way will not deter us from proceeding to ensure that there's a seamless transfer of power, which is provided for by our Constitution.
We understand that world leaders from Africa, Europe, and America are scheduled to attend the inauguration ceremony in Abuja. Perhaps you can give us an idea of those who have now confirmed to attend the event.
Quite a number of them have confirmed, but because of diplomatic privilege, I'm not in a position to disclose who and who. We live in difficult times. So countries of the world have a way of making sure that only on need-to-know basis, the movement of their heads of government. But
the security concerns you've expressed, but perhaps you can give us a number we can work with.
Well, I would advise you cross-check that with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because the countries that we have invited deal directly with them. You know the process.